and welcome to the Game Buzz. It's just the two of us here this week. I'm Matt, and I'm joined here by Carl.
Hello.
And Carl, you're going to help me this week because I need you to puzzle through the mess of confusion that is Metal Gear Solid 5.
You think I'm going to be able to? Okay, this is going to be interesting. Right. It's changed several times since the actual trailer announcement that came out, which was equally as confusing when Kojima came out with that horrific Joachim mask thing that was just horrible.
Joachim Mogren.
Yeah, God, that mask was. At least he did his "Did you like it?" thing, which made me laugh. Yes. Metal Gear Solid 5.
What is Metal Gear Solid 5?
Right, well, apparently Metal Gear Solid 5 is both Metal Gear Solid Ground Zeroes and the Phantom Pain as one experience. However, they will both be separate games which will be distributed separately. From what I understand, Ground Zeroes is going to be the prologue. It's going to be basically you'll have Ground Zeroes that happens first, and it will be about Big Boss, kind of like carrying on. I think it's 10 years after the events of Peace Walker, and it's all about the fall of Mother Base. I assume it is. And by the end of that game, apparently everything will have gone all wrong, and it'll end up with Big Boss being in some sort of coma, and then the Phantom Pain begins. And he wakes up 9 years later, and you're basically having to escape with no arms and looking at Kiefer Sutherland's ass. That's what I understand. From basically, it will be that you do a tutorial section where you're basically gaining more power over your body because obviously you haven't used it in 9 years. And then by the end of the section where you've broken free and you've escaped the hospital, it then becomes an open world game. That is what that's what I can take from everything that's been given out, and chances are that's probably wrong, and we will be completely corrected next week. But from what I understand, Ground Zeroes is an open world game that will have some multiplayer aspects to it, and then it goes back into being a single player game with the Phantom Pain, and then it opens up into an open world game again. That is what I think it is.
This like everyone was gearing up for this, this talk, this reveal, whatever you want to call it. Going, yeah. Okay, we're finally going to understand. We're going to understand. We're going to comprehend. And so far, it's just been sort of 4 or 5 days of news posts just contradictorily going around in circles.
Yep, that's the thing. It's Kojima. If we were meant to make sense of it, it would not be Kojima at all.
I mean, at least people are talking about it. I suppose
yeah.
I suppose it's much better to sort of pitch a whole bunch of seemingly conflicting ideas and let people puzzle over the confusion rather than to say something horrifically sexist or terrible.
Yeah, exactly. So
Let's go Kojima.
Oh, Kojima, never change. Never ever change.
Love you, Kojima.
Really do. Yeah. Oh, yeah. So that's basically what that is. Maybe.
Maybe. Yeah, we have to put caveats on that. Although the trailer was pretty cool.
It was.
Completely bizarre.
Good use of the garbage track, I feel.
Yes, definitely. Good to see a lot of horses in there.
Majestic, explosive horses.
Explosive, fiery steeds. Fox Engine's doing that well.
Oh, it's looking very, very nice. I mean, that's the thing. That was running on a PC rig, but it is almost certainly going to be coming out for next-gen consoles. I don't know whether they will bring out a PC version, although it makes sense that Kojima would perhaps start looking at engaging the PC audience, really, considering how it seems to be coming back to that area where everyone seems to be picking up a PC rig, and a powerful one at that. I mean, you're looking at buying one this week. We've been trying to help you get one, haven't we? So I think it would be a missed opportunity, but I wouldn't be too surprised if they just stay with consoles.
Well, the thing is, like, Ground Zeroes is apparently going to be coming to PS3 and Xbox 360 with the Phantom Pain, then picking that story up potentially on next gen.
That would be interesting. Possibly, but it would. It's a really good ploy because you'd get people hooked this generation, and then it encourages people who've enjoyed it to go out and buy the next gen console.
Yeah, and I have to say, I actually think if you're going to make an enormous opus, um, splitting it across 2 games is really not a bad idea. Because if you think about it, Assassin's Creed 2 is essentially 3 games.
Yeah.
And we loved that. Like that was really awesome. And actually, I was critical of Assassin's Creed 3, essentially trying to boil down generations of story into 1 game.
Yeah.
And therefore sort of having lots of holes and stuff. And Kojima's big on story, he's especially big on like confusing spaghetti junctions of narrative.
Yep.
And so, 2 games might work out incredibly well for that. And so
absolutely.
That's very exciting.
I think the only other thing to take from all of this is all of the faff that's been going on about voice acting duties. The big thing has come out that David Hayter is, well, apparently not returning at all. And as we heard in the trailer that was given out, it was a different voice actor to David Hayter.
Yeah.
I think it sounded very similar to the guy who is used for Big Boss's voice in Metal Gear Solid 4, which is a guy called Richard Doyle. So it would make sense considering that, because it would be weird having David Hayter talking to David Hayter. Let's be honest. It would be really confusing. So it'd be, you'd have a voice like this, and then you'd be chatting to someone who had a voice like this. You just wouldn't know what was going on. So that was kind of like a Batman thing. I apologize.
It was a bit Bale.
I'm Batman. But yes, it makes sense that they would get someone else into. No Bane, not yet. Anyway.
Welcome. Sorry.
No Bane. Yes, basically, it would make sense to have the voice actor change as he gets older, because obviously he's been in a coma. His voice might have changed. Like his vocal cords might have got screwed up. I don't know the science. But it does make sense to transition away from David Hayter. But admittingly, we only heard his voice in conjunction to the Phantom Pain. We don't know. Before we know, David Hayter could be just completely trolling everybody and could be doing voice acting duties for Ground Zeroes. We don't know yet.
We just don't know.
We don't know. And let's be honest, it's not the first time that both Hayter and Kojima have tried to play us off on misdirections. So
this is true. Kojima is the master of misdirection.
He really is.
Like second, perhaps only to Valve.
Oh, Valve.
But yeah, Phantom Pain, Ground Zeroes, 2 games, 1 umbrella, Metal Gear Solid 5, boom!
Woo!
Yeah, explosions in Fox Engine deliciousness.
And horses.
Yeah, and horses. And horses.
Where's the horses?
Oh, we always need horses. Horses are good.
Ever
since Office Horse, we've been craving more Fox Engine horses.
So majestic.
So very majestic. Interesting point about the PC stuff. Because I want to segue into a blog post that happened this week from Mitch Lasky, he's been an exec sort of pretty much everywhere almost, from Activision to Disney to EA themselves. And yeah, this blog post was very much focused on EA. There's been a big change at the top. There's been lots of sort of we're getting hints of lots of sort of internal power struggles.
Yeah.
And EA are clearly a company sort of at a fork in the roads. Like one way leads to doom, and the other leads to salvation and redemption. That's a very simplistic way of putting it, but it's kind of where they're at. To be honest, like they've lost their head. The head of the snake has been cut off. They need to look somewhere else for direction. And Mitch Lasky, he warned that a focus on consoles, as attractive as it may be in next gen, is likely to hamstring the company completely.
Yeah.
And I thought that was very interesting.
Yeah. It's as you were saying. If the audience is shifting away to PC, and the fact that Valve are starting to get involved with the Steam box and everything else, and as we've seen with the PlayStation 3, that is having more of a PC type architecture to it all. So it's no longer the case. Whereas if we take, for example, the FIFA games of the past, it always seemed like the PC version of that year of FIFA would always play second fiddle to the to the console versions, and it always seemed like you were getting a subpar version as a result. Whereas now, if it's all very PC-like architecture across the board, then surely it will be easier to focus on the PC aspect of things, especially if they do really want to start pushing Origin, which I'm sure many people will probably get annoyed about. But yeah, it makes sense in a way because the architecture's there. It means they don't have to worry about patches and licensing for consoles as well, which, as we know, is a very big sort of like landmine-esque area to enter into with regards to file sizes and things. So it makes sense that they should be focusing towards PC, I would say.
Well, I think, and this is something we're gonna discuss with regard to Square Enix in a minute. But Lasky's point sort of revolved around bloated teams, high production costs, and packaged goods marketing and merchandising.
Yeah.
That happens on console. So you have this enormous experience focused on very restrictive hardware.
Yeah.
And I think it's worth pointing out that obviously the only consoles we have to go on right now are the existing ones. And we have no idea how open and how engaged and connected the next generation will be necessarily. Sony have been making lots of noise about making it super easy for developers and super easy for publishers on the PS4, but we really have no idea how open it will be. And what we're seeing small form factor PCs enter the lounge space. Valve are making noises here and there, which is rare for them because they usually keep stum.
Yep.
It's going to be very interesting. And the thing is, actually, you mentioned FIFA. When I was at Gamescom last year, one of the big things regarding FIFA 13 was they had dedicated PC stuff running, and they really focused on a small part of their talk was focused on, okay, we want to concentrate on PC quite a lot. I mean, we've got this trip screen thing going on here. It looks amazing.
Yeah.
The experience on PC is going to be actually so much better than console. I find it interesting that they, but that never seems to translate outside of almost industry events. Bizarrely, the focus is very much console. And I suppose we'll mention it now. Battlefield 4. Following in the footsteps of Battlefield 3, like it seems they're taking on a rather console-centric focus, which is bizarre for a series that has been a PC mainstay.
I guess with all this kind of like advertising, such as the 17-minute trailer for Battlefield 4, it is targeted at that sort of demographic. It is targeted at the people who want that big gun-ho Transformers-esque Michael Bay experience of explosions and deep bass, because the PC audience knows what they want. They know that when they buy Battlefield 4, there will be the multiplayer component, which is going to be hopefully even better than Battlefield 3. Still have the large player numbers and everything else. It's not aimed for them. It's very similar to the way that with BioShock Infinite and their cover, and the fact that was aimed at the dude bro demographic, and that was it. That was all the pandering done. In a way, it seems like that's what they're doing again, which is disappointing for us because we would like to see like the multiplayer shenanigans in action, much like the Endgame trailer that came out.
Yeah.
Which looked fantastic, and that was all multiplayer action, and it all worked, and it looked amazing. And I think that because John has written an article which basically says, kind of gets to that train of thought, and it's worth checking out. And I don't know, it's strange because I understand why they've gone for that sort of trailer, and it was very shiny, as we keep saying, but it is a little disappointing that they didn't show much more than that.
Well, I think we've been seeing this a lot from marketing and PR departments. Like they'll release a trailer that essentially caters to none of their sort of hardcore audience. We saw it at E3 last year, especially. Like lots of sort of seemingly disingenuous trailers for stealthy games that were action heavy, like Splinter Cell.
Hitman as well was
Hitman. Hitman was the big one. And then they sort of, because they know that a hardcore audience is engaged, they get attention from people who aren't necessarily interested in the series early on, and then sort of appease the long-time fans afterwards. So we'll certainly hear about the multiplayer. We'll certainly, like, down the line, I suppose.
Yeah.
But I agree, it's a shame. It's a shame that they decided to show 17 minutes of gorgeous gameplay footage that looked absolutely identical to pretty much every single military shooter we've ever seen ever.
Yeah.
And as John mentions in his article, why are DICE still trying to make Battlefield more like COD? It doesn't make sense. COD's got that locked down. They've had it locked down for a
Yep.
long time. We don't need more COD. We need more Battlefield. So, when it comes to next gen, and bizarrely, DICE came out saying stuff like, "Oh no, it's not going to be about the graphics. It's going to be about leveraging an emotional connection." It's like, fuck that. We don't play Battlefield for an emotional connection. There was nothing like an emotional connection in that video. It was
I don't know.
bullshit.
I don't know. There was a bit of an emotional disconnection with that guy's leg, if you know what I'm saying. Chop it right off, slice it up real nice.
If that had been a bad company, because we were kind of joking about this before the podcast. If that had been a bad company, single player, it would have had "Bad to the Bone" as the music was.
Yep, right.
Down to a guy's bone.
Oh, it's because that's the thing. I mean, it was interesting the fact that when you watch the trailer, you saw like the guy go, "Yeah, shoot the window out. Yeah, don't worry about me." And I was wondering, what's the matter? Why can't he move? What's the matter? And then you see it, and it's like, oh, that's what that is. And oh god, that's pretty gross. That guy has had a bad day, basically, a very, very bad day. And he's just like, oh, dude. But that was about the level of my emotional, like, commitment to it all, really.
Yeah, I mean the thing is, like, I couldn't give a shit what Frostbite 3 is doing for the graphics, really. I mean, we know, like, oh my god, DICE are going to create a game that has amazing graphics with their Frostbite engine.
Well, yeah.
Go figure. Like, I want to know what that engine, what the next gen tech, and what that engine's doing in terms of AI, in terms of AI and how many players can we put on a map at the same time? Because 4 was good. What about 128 DICE? Yes.
Yeah, let's bring back the mag style action.
Like, can you imagine DICE doing mag, but doing it like we know DICE could do it? That would be amazing. I think that's what every Battlefield player wants, really.
Yeah, throw that in, and then tell us more about this destructible environment that's meant to be even better than Bad Company 2. Because we didn't. Yes, we saw a bit of it, and the destructible cover was really nice, and the fact that you could blow it out and give yourself more angles to shoot at people and destroy their cover, but they can destroy yours. That's what I got from the trailer. That seems really good. And I suppose the other thing that they were not so subtly trying to push was the fact that this is going to be yet another connected experience, similar to Sleeping Dogs, in that this is your point score. Someone else has just done the prologue and has got more points than you. You better shape up, son. Otherwise, you're going to be like on the bottom of the leaderboard, and everyone's going to laugh at you. That sort of thing. It's got that sort of like community competitive edge to the single player.
It's got Battlelog, hasn't it?
Well, yeah, in a sense, yes, it's basically just Battlelog, but it's right there in the game. You can see in the top corner in the video, if you didn't notice it before, it's there. Shows you how many achievements you're getting and what friends are on and things like that. It's all there. And I suppose that's a nice thing, in a way. It kind of adds that bit. In a way, it kind of detracts from the emotional element that they're trying to push, because it's kind of like going, oh yes, you're still in a game, but it's emotional. But it's a game. I don't know. At the end of the day, we want to see the multiplayer, basically.
Pretty much. I mean, if I hadn't had to play through the single player for review purposes, I would have skipped it completely. And
missed that rap moment.
Balls. Oh yeah, what are we gonna do now? Stab a guinea pig. Yeah, we're gonna shiv someone's guinea pig.
Calling it now.
Pretty much. That's going to be it. Of course, Battlefield 4 will not. One thing Battlefield 4 won't be doing is going to the Wii U.
Yes, that news came out, didn't it?
Yet another game, yet another multi-platform game, just skipping over the Wii U. This is something that the Xbox 360 did very well. Came out early. It got a load of multi-platforms. Because we still were the transition period was a little bit more. There were a few more players, I suppose, but you had that sort of crossover period between sort of GameCube and Wii and Xbox and Xbox 360, and PS2 was still very much involved in there because PS3 was so late. Multi-platforms went everywhere. Multi-platform games are now missing the Wii U. This is not the first. Tomb Raider's not on there. BioShock's not on there. Hitman's not on there, I don't think.
Nope.
No?
Hitman's not.
Nintendo said, well, okay, yeah, we're going to be getting loads of third-party games on there. Where are they? Where are the multi-platforms? Because we've had 2 games in the last few weeks, basically, in the shape of Monster Hunter 3 Ultimate, which will not be the game that brings Monster Hunter to the West, not really.
Yeah.
As we mentioned last week. And now Lego City Undercover, which is, by all accounts, fucking amazing. But we need more than that. EA, like, Dead Space 3's not on there.
I suppose there was the announcement that Deus Ex Human Revolution is getting its director's cut on the Wii U.
That's a good thing.
So, I mean, that's a really good thing, especially the fact that they fixed the boss battles for it, which, in a way, makes me very bitter. Surely they can come out with a patch and bring that to the PC audience. Surely. Because, I mean, the fact that they've talked about how you can actually do it in the bosses in a stealth manner, akin to how it was back in the original Deus Ex, is brilliant.
Yeah.
But why can't we have that? Why does it have to be in a way? I think that's part of the problem. It's the fact that they know the audience is elsewhere, and it's a very brave move to do this for Deus Ex for the Wii U. Because is this going to be the thing that who is it aimed for? Is it aimed at the people who have bought a Wii U and haven't played Deus Ex, or is it to try and lure people into getting a Wii U, just so you could have that definitive Deus Ex experience?
Well, I think it's just another sort of attractive. They're trying to create an attractive string to the Wii U's bow, I suppose. But it's worrying when you have sort of like the two biggest publishers who were originally the 2 biggest stalwarts, EA, who got up on stage with Nintendo at the Wii U announcement and went, "Look, we're on stage with Nintendo, yay!" Seemingly now jumping ship because it's not selling enough. Ubisoft have just seemingly every week just keeps saying, "Nintendo, you're not selling enough. Like we're not gonna put games in your system anymore until you sell more." And it's sort of that catch-22 situation. How is the Wii going to sell more if it's not being supported sufficiently by third parties? And it comes back once again to Nintendo essentially having to do everything for themselves, which they've done in the past, but this is like every single generation is getting riskier, and that's not always going to hold up.
I mean, we've talked about this plenty of times, in the fact that having these nice little strings to the bow is nice, but there needs to be loads of strings for it to pull in people. I mean, I haven't been interested in getting one because even though Rayman Origins looks fantastic and Lego City Undercover looks fantastic, that's about it, really, for me to draw me in. I mean, yes, okay, you've got the traditional Nintendo experiences, which I'm sure are very good, but have never truly grabbed my attention. So they need to venture out and get more things in. And I don't know whether it's still the same case with you, Matt, because you were the same as me. As I remember, that you didn't necessarily think there was enough there. You were waiting for the games to come out. I mean, is that still the case with you, would you say?
Yes, although I really do want to play Lego City Undercover.
Right.
I love the Lego games so much. They're so great, and every single noise I've heard. Unfortunately, we haven't. We've had serious trouble trying to get review code through for it, which is a bit odd. But World on the Grapevine is freaking amazing.
But it makes me wonder, if it doesn't sell particularly well on the Wii U, I'm guessing pretty much everyone who has a Wii U will get Lego City Undercover. But if it doesn't sell well, will it be ported to other consoles?
You see, timed exclusives aren't necessarily bad for the Wii U. I think, like, Nintendo basically need to tread water, don't they? So timed exclusives aren't particularly bad. It's the exclusive part that's important. So if Lego City Undercover does end up releases early on the Wii U, it's released on the Wii U now. It's there. It's done. And if it then sort of makes the jump to consoles 6 months later down the line in time for Christmas, I'm not sure that's necessarily a bad thing. Delaying Rayman Legends was a dick move on Ubisoft's part.
Yeah, absolutely. We've been over this though, haven't we? We've said that it was a vote of no confidence. Really, they wanted to get it out there because they were like, "Oh, the fans have said, bring it out for our
That was
console.
thing is that was really disappointing. They'd already made it. I mean, yeah, we've been over this. They'd already made it. It was already ready. That's that to contrast with the Lego City potential model.
Yeah.
That's a serious dick move, especially when everything was ready. So I don't know. I don't know when I'm going to get one, because we still don't have a clear release date for Pikmin 3, and that was the game that I really wanted.
Yeah.
That Wonderful 101, Lego City Undercover. When I can have those 3 games, that's when I will probably get the Wii U. Just in time for exciting times at E3. But that was supposed to happen sort of this month-ish. And
that's the thing. If the existing partners for Nintendo with the Wii U aren't staying on board, then yeah, why should people like EA or everyone else make games that are for the Wii U? You know, why should they bring out a port for it?
it speaks badly of the development infrastructure as well, because I mean, normally even shaky ports might sell. I mean, you don't need
Yeah.
to. You think like you don't. If you're just going to do a straight port over to the Wii U just for for the audience's sake, you wouldn't have to spend huge amounts of money incorporating every single facet of the gamepad into it.
Yeah.
The existence of Miiverse and the fact that you could create communities around a game would be original enough potentially in itself. But the fact they're just saying straight away, nah, it's not worth the effort. That's really worrying this early on. So yeah, I want to move on. Speaking of cost, I want to move on quickly to Square Enix, because this took us all a bit by surprise, I think.
Yes.
The scale of the problem that arose. Yoichi Wada has resigned his post as the head of Square Enix after their financial reports came out, and they didn't look great.
A huge loss, as I remember rightly.
Almost 10 billion yen loss, net loss, and it's been blamed on slow Western sales. But this is to do with a figure that with figures that seem fairly high.
Yeah, what was it? Something like Tomb Raider has sold as of the beginning of the week. It was 3.5 million, was it? I think it was like around about that number so far. That is a huge number. As far as I'm concerned, that's a huge success. That's 3.5 million copies of Tomb Raider in such a short space of time, and rightly deserved, because it's a great game, as you said in your review. But apparently that is under the estimates that they were hoping for.
Yeah,
it is underachieved.
I've got the figures in front of me. Like in 2013, Tomb Raider sold 3.4 million, Hitman sold 3.6, Sleeping Dogs sold 1.75. That's understandable because Sleeping Dogs released in August last year.
Yeah.
But these are apparently low figures, and I think that's been something of a wake-up call.
Yeah. The other thing, if I remember rightly, wasn't that it does not include digital download numbers?
It doesn't include digital download numbers.
Why?
That I don't know.
That's the thing that gets me the most, because you think about the Steam sales. Yes, okay, it means that they get less money, but my God, they still get money.
Like they need to incorporate those numbers fast, because that you'd think that would boost it.
Yeah.
But you'd obviously think as well, like when it came to sort of people very, very, very high up and indeed at the top of the food chain losing their jobs, then those numbers would eventually be incorporated, perhaps behind closed doors, into these report numbers. And if those together still aren't enough, that's deeply, deeply worrying deeply worrying for AAA production.
Yes. Well, I mean, this is getting back onto the whole Lasky thing, saying, focus on smaller budgets, the fact that we're not, but game publishers are spending too much to make these games, as the case with Square Enix. I think this is why Sony is focusing on getting these indie gamers, like the indie programmers, in to make games that are affordable, to keep content coming, so that when the big publishers do decide to go all out for a big AAA, thing. It's the money is there and they can make it back, and people are like, oh yes, we've been up for a huge mega blockbuster experience, and they go for it. And I think in a way it's kind of they need to step back and go, right, we need to not bring. I think perhaps annual installments are the big issue, perhaps. Like coming out with yearly installments for games is well, you look at was it a year gap between Final Fantasy 13 and 13-2? Was it a couple of years? I can't remember.
I think it was 2.
But it because that was one of the things that was pointed out, the fact that 13-2 did not get anywhere near the number they wanted it to, did they? If I remember rightly from the report. But I think they need to start figuring out how to. Well, actually, no, I don't know, because we want these big blockbuster games in a way, but it's why are they costing so much to like have it so that these 3.5 million does not equal a success? Why is it? Yeah, it's baffling.
Well, one thing that was very interesting was the report suggesting that the North American sales force was completely ineffectual, and that two-thirds of the number of units in the West were sold in Europe. Which is, go Square Enix Europe, hell yeah.
Yeah.
But they got to sort that out, and fast. And you're right. I'm not sure what the solution is. I mean, in John's article where he breaks down Battlefield 4, excellent article, and it's something we've been discussing a lot. Sort of the breaking down components of games into
multiplayer and single player.
Multiplayer, single player, cooperative elements. Reducing the prices and sort of selling games in their component form.
Yeah.
At lower prices for each of them, but it's difficult. It's super difficult to do that for a game like Sleeping Dogs, and it's super difficult to have a cohesive experience for something like Tomb Raider. Because I have no idea how you do that.
It is hard.
Without sort of breaking the flow and the. It's difficult.
Yeah, I mean, I think the only reason that Naughty Dog were able to do it with Uncharted was the fact that the game had been out for a year and a bit by the time that they did finally turn around and go, yes, okay, here's the multiplayer component, here's the single player component, go buy it, and the first bit's free.
Yeah.
Trying to lure you in. But because it was already a success and because the audience is already there, they were able to do it. You're right, it is hard to think of a way to grab the audience to jump into a brand new game. So say, for instance, they decide to release Tomb Raider 2. And they go, right, here's the single player, and here's the multiplayer if you want it. And that they're both below what should be the RRP, but you perhaps get it for a decent deal if you buy the complete package, if you go and buy everything. Those are your options. I'd be interested to see how well each section did, but it would have to take a very brave publisher to give that a go.
I'll be interested to see as well, just like how much did it cost to put in that multiplayer segment for Tomb Raider? And I'd like to see the stats on how many people are playing it, because the vocal side of things, all the reviews, it was the same in our review. Most of the forum posters going, why does this game even have Tomb Raider? Why does this game even have Tomb Raider? No,
yeah.
Why does this game even have multiplayer? Most of the comments, why I'm not even going to touch the multiplayer. It's not really worth it. It's definitely not why you're there. It's definitely not a reason you'd buy the game. It's a reason you might keep playing the game, but that's not use to anyone, because you need the sales first, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the thing. I think they got it right in a way with. I can't believe I'm saying this. They got this right with Mass Effect 3, in that it was the multiplayer was surprisingly good. If you were to just take it as it is, like if you took away the whole thing that it was Mass Effect, may not necessarily have sold as well on its own, but it's because it was a connected experience to the single player, it draws people to go back. So when you do play through Mass Effect 3 again, or if you want to try and keep your EMS score up high, you had to play it. Whereas with this being a separated experience from the main Tomb Raider thing, and the fact that you're not really playing as any of the main character. Is that right? Don't play as any of the main characters from the actual game, Tomb Raider. It's a completely separate experience, isn't it? So you don't feel the need to get in there and be a part of the world. It's not like when you're playing in the Uncharted multiplayer. You can make your own character, but you can also be Drake. You can also be Eleanor. You could also be Tenzin. There is that attachment to the single player there.
I suppose the point I was kind of making was that I suppose that in multiplayer, having a multiplayer component allows you to then sell multiplayer DLC.
Yes, which is what they're doing with Tomb Raider, isn't it?
Absolutely. Which is a real shame, because actually story-based DLC would have been much, much, much better.
Yep. More tombs.
Just more tombs, more puzzle tombs. They don't even have to be related to the story. The story is nicely self-contained. And in fact, actually, by the end of Tomb Raider, you have become Lara Croft. It would make sense that you'd go raid tombs just for the sake of raiding tombs.
Mm-hmm.
But like, the point I was trying to get at was, if you have a game that's so definitely a multiplayer experience, why bother spending money developing a multiplayer component to package along with the game, when you could potentially save your money, sell the game at a slightly lower, reduced sort of £5-10 price point, get more sales, then add in the multiplayer as DLC for those who've already got the game?
That would be sensible, but then at the same time, perhaps it's all come down to budgets. How if you spend less to make a game, then the next time when you go to make a game, oh yeah, well you made it for X amount and you won't need it now. Perhaps it's one of those situations, kind of like a council thing where they have to spend all their money by April.
Yeah, and this is kind of why I'm terrified about next gen, because those costs are only going up.
Yep.
Although Sony have been making noises that, a few people from Sony, a few developers working on games for the PS4 have suggested that it's actually fairly comparable, the cost of creating for the PS3 as opposed to creating for the PS4. That might have something to do with the fact that the PS3 was an utter arse to develop for, and that the PS4 is just much nicer.
Yeah.
But yeah, one last thing before we go, something that has been met with a certain amount of sarcasm and mockery, and we return to EA for this, when Frank Gibeau came out and responded to the Maxis SimCity debacle and said, no, it was never about DRM. DRM never came up in any of the meetings. The thought that we were holding like some sort of knife to Maxis' throats going, make it always online, is ridiculous, and that DRM is in fact a dead-end strategy.
Right.
Those are some nice words, Gibeau.
They are.
It's a really nice word.
But it's interesting the fact that Origin itself is basically DRM.
It's totally DRM.
This is, it's an interesting point, and if they're saying that DRM is a dead end, then it makes you think, how are they approaching games in the future going forward with Origin? Yes, you've got with Steam, which is essentially DRM as well, does have its offline mode. I don't know whether Origin does and whether it functions correctly yet, but are we going to see a change in the way that Origin is made and the way the games are integrated with it? Are we going to see a change, or is this just a kind of a way of them going, well, DRM is never our intention, but it is there? That makes any sense.
Like, to play devil's advocate, I actually think I kind of agree with Gibeau in part, because all online clients, Steam, Desura, Origin, it's all DRM.
Yeah.
But the thing is, it has to be. These are platforms. It's DRM in the same way that playing an Xbox disc can only run on an Xbox is DRM.
Yes.
You're tied to a platform, and that platform just happens to be digital in this case. But I think the more interesting point is perhaps is something that we've been talking about a lot in recent weeks: the need for clear-cut communication. And he mentioned the phrase MMO. It's something we've been touting around for ages. We've had a couple of comments on it, and I know you're quite eager to get stuck into this.
Yeah, there was just to go over it. He said that it's essentially an MMO. SimCity, and it's something I've been saying for months. Even when it first came out, they were talking about connectivity. It was, this is an MMO. It's a connected thing. This is why it needs to be always online. It's not the DRM thing. It is all about the fact that it is a connected experience. But we've had comments from people, and they are understandable in the fact that they're saying, oh, it's more spin. It's more spin. They're just trying to cover the tracks and come up with excuses, and now they're trying to say, oh, it's an MMO, just to kind of excuse away the fact that they've had these issues and the fact that the DRM is there. But as I've said, I don't agree with that. This is what SimCity is. It is an MMO, but if they'd have called it SimCity Online or SimCity World of SimCity or whatever, then one, it probably would have been a bad title, but two, it would have kind of indicated that it was a MMO. They would have had to say it was an MMO, and in that respect, it wouldn't have necessarily pulled in the day one sales that it did. It would have meant that further on down the line, when the whole server issues happened, that people would have gone, oh, well, it's an MMO. This is what happens. It's not right. They should have got it right, but there would have been less rage, essentially. But because they didn't, and people who weren't fully expecting an MMO, even though it was very clear cut that you had to be online to play it, people got angry. And it's brought out comments such as, from Dr. Trouserplank here, who's saying that I will point out that EA's benefit, however, that MMOs tend to be regularly patched, expanded, and additional content provided for free. Well, they have been patching, haven't they? They have been, so I think it's a bit unfair. I think it's kind of like attacking EA for the sake that it is EA in a way. And don't get me wrong, they deserve the flack that they've had.
Absolutely.
It was, as we have said, as we've coined the phrase, it was an omni shambles. Absolutely was, and they should be held to account for that. But let's be fair about it. They are trying to fix it. They still have a long way to go, and I think I would say do not buy it yet. Wait, give it a month or so, because we're going to go back in and try it out, and we will let you know whether they have actually fixed it. But give them a bit of a break, in a sense. I mean, at the same time, still hold them to account, but don't go overboard with it. It's a case of they are trying to get it back up in there, but. Yeah, in the case of MMOs as well, I was thinking about this earlier. Another reason they probably didn't use the word MMO with EA, because what was the last big EA MMO to come out? It was SWTOR. And do you really want to be putting SimCity in the same bag as SWTOR?
No, and I think I completely agree with you. We said we've been saying ever since we found out that it was connected. The big question is it always connected? And Max's answer was pretty much from the start, yes.
Yeah.
And we said when John ran his preview, and when I've run previews in the past as well, we've said it's an always connected experience, and that's fine because the concept was great.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I kind of agree with Gibeau. I think when you say it's been a failure of communication, it's been a complete failure of communication. It's been a complete failure of communication. People, and they needed to be more prepared for this.
Yes.
To be fair, but it's been a case of them not successfully imparting the fact that this SimCity is such a completely new experience, and also the fact that, but also the fact that they've almost sort of hamstrung their game to do that. And I think that's been the difficulty. The fact that if it had been seamless, if the communication had been good, I really don't think we would have had any of these problems. People have been like, I'm playing with my mates online doing, oh look, there are leaderboards, this is amazing. The fact that there's absolutely no competitive element when the button's right there, when you can see it, is really depressing. The fact that regions weren't working properly or even approaching properly for 2-3 weeks after launch is disgraceful and completely ridiculous. And because there was no offline element, because there was no sort of sandbox mode, it made every single flaw that more visible. And,
absolutely.
Like, but MMOs are like that. Like, they are buggy at the start. They do need constant patching in those first few weeks, and that's what Maxes have been doing. And there's no subscription here. Dear God, thank fuck there's no subscription here.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's not a terrible... The thing is, I'd posit that it's not a very good MMO.
No.
Like, even if we excuse all those things, it's still not a very good MMO. And part of that is because it's been so heavily restricted to to funnel people into playing it in a certain way. And to be honest, that's actually not what MMOs are about.
Ish, kind of. I mean, you know, when you talk about, you have your classes and you are set into various things, and know that some MMOs have been trying to kind of like open it out so that you can be what you want. I wouldn't necessarily agree that is. It is and it isn't. It's weird. I do agree with you, but I don't agree with you at the same time. But you're right. It still comes down to the fact that you have been funneled into playing a certain way. As I said in the review, you either build a pretty city or you build a functional one, and that's basically it. You can't have your cake and eat it. And just fix it. Come on, we've waited.
Come on, okay. I mean, it makes me sad that you can't. Because the trading stuff is great, the gifting stuff is great, the coming together to create great works is great.
Absolutely.
But the fact that you can't help one another to build amazing cities together is a shame.
Yeah, especially not instantly as well.
Because it's Sim Region.
That's
it's not
yeah.
SimCity. It's not SimCity. You can never build an amazing city in SimCity. Even if you work together.
That's the thing, yeah. Even if you do it on your own, you can't have one plot and hope to do everything in that one plot. You kind of have to have little bits of everything, but you can't build this great city. You've got to expand out into everything else, and we should stop this because it's another talk of SimCity. We're just going to end.
We should stop. We will be revisiting SimCity once they've put in some online stuff like the leaderboards and turn things back on, like fucking cheetah speed. Come on. And in tomorrow's what are we talking about in tomorrow's podcast?
Companions, AI.
We are talking about companions and companionship and friends, AI friends. Yay. So do tune in for that. Otherwise, thank you very much for listening, and we'll catch you tomorrow, guys. Thanks. Bye. Have a good Easter.
Happy Easter.
Easter. Have a lot of chocolate and milkshakes.
Milkshakes. That'd be quite nice. We should go get some milkshakes.
I'm going to, yeah. Let's go for some milkshakes. Later, guys.
Bye-bye.